I'll show you my Scoo-Doo-Doo. Scoo-Doo-Doo-Doo-Doo. Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Doo.
This broadcast is made possible by the Capricorn Group.
The gaseous exchange surface. Okay, respiratory system of the human. And yesterday it was important to us to see what is the features that makes the respiratory surface of the human successful or efficient. Right. What is the name of the gaseous exchange surface of the human? The alveoli. Okay, and I hope that you can name all these 5 and add to it. Now, I'm going to increase slide show from this slide. Now it is interesting to see that a leaf also has a gaseous exchange surface. Nee. And if I am looking at the gaseous exchange surface of a leaf, can we say that it is thin? Yes. If we look at a leaf, we can see that it really is a very thin blade to make gaseous exchange or the diffusion distance a very short distance. Can we say that we have a large surface area? If we look at a leaf on its top or bottom layer, then we have the epidermis layer. And in the epidermis layer, we have the stoma, where we have gaseous exchange. So, yes, we also have a large surface area. Do we have an efficient transport system in a leaf? We have an efficient, what do we call the transport system in a leaf? You find this in your book in page 316. The phloem for the products of photosynthesis and the xylem for water and mineral salts. Nah. Okay. We also see that the cell walls in the leaf are very thin-walled cells for the diffusion of gases. Okay, sorry, let me just finish that one. And then we know that we have the stomata. So we can refer to a leaf not only as a surface or a structure where photosynthesis is taking place, but it needs to be a gaseous exchange surface, a leaf. Why is this important? Which gases are important for a leaf in order to function? Carbon dioxide, because it is used up during photosynthesis. And oxygen will be released during photosynthesis, and the oxygen will then be used for respiration to release energy. You see? So, yes, we can look at leaves as a gaseous exchange surface. Okay. Just to note, state and explain the differences in composition between inspired air and expired air. And that I am not going to waste time, class. Page 312. We talked about that yesterday. You have the inspired air, you have the expired air, and you have the reason why it takes place. Right, and that brings us now to inhalation and exhalation, and I want you to stand up. You all exhaled and inhaled all day long up to now. Right, so breathing is the ventilation process. Okay, and I want you to take your ribs now. We normally don't breathe like that, but I want you to hold your rib cage or your thorax. What do we have between the ribs? The intercostal muscles. What do we have there? The diaphragm. Okay, so let's breathe in. Breathe out. Okay, that's not difficult. That's not difficult. So, you may sit down. And I want you now to look at the picture and think what you experienced. The moment when I am breathing in, we said we want to increase this volume to decrease the pressure. To do that, the diaphragm needs to contract. Contract, move downwards, contract. The external intercostal muscles will contract, and by that, open and upwards the rib cage or the thorax. Now, I have a larger volume, lower pressure, lower than the pressure outside, and air will diffuse in. This is called an active process because of the contraction. What happens to your abdominal muscles? This is your abdominal muscles, not your stomach muscles. Nah. What must happen to them when you breathe in? They must relax, so that all this, they must relax if you are breathing properly, so that there is a space for your intestinals to move downwards. You see, if this is moving downwards, where must your stomach and your intestinals go? More downwards. So the abdominal muscles must relax. So when you are breathing properly, you need to breathe in. When you breathe out, they must contract to push up the intestinals, and with that, the diaphragm will push upwards. The external intercostal muscles will relax, and the inter ones will contract to decrease the pressure. Increase the pressure, decrease the volume, and the air will be pushed out. Okay, do you have that? So I want the date, please. I want the date, please. I want you to write down breathing mechanism or ventilation, and we are going to write down inspiration or inhalation. Please, there is also some of your notes and your test that need to be filed. Okay, you need your book. You need the date, please. And I want you to copy what I have there, because I have said it now. And see if you can remember it in that order. Okay. Please, what happens with the body and what is the effect of that? If the muscles in the diaphragm contract, the diaphragm flattens and move downwards. See if you can study it in those columns. Okay, so now I want you now to use what you have there and write down expiration. Write down now expiration. So you read exactly what you have there, and I want you to think. If in inspiration the muscles in the diaphragm contract, and it has this effect, what will happen with expiration? Okay. Okay. And that is more or less what your answer will be. Expiration, the muscles in the diaphragm relax, so the diaphragm now becomes The internal intercostal muscles contract. Now, Did you say the external intercostal muscles relax? Wonderful. It's correct. It's correct. So what we learn here is that we have, when the external contract, the internal relax, and we call them antagonistic pairs. You remember that word from grade 10? But if you said external intercostal muscles relax, just add the internal intercostal muscles contract. And we can see that when they contract, they will decrease the volume. Nah, can you see this? It will work something like this. Nah, the internal ones. Okay. So it is not wrong if you said external intercostal muscles relax. Just add that the internal ones will contract. On the next page, you have the test for carbon dioxide, which we talked about yesterday. But look higher level. We can also use, on page 319, we can also use hydrogen carbonate indicator. Hydrogen carbonate, red hydrogen carbonate, change to yellow. Nah, you see that? Okay, do you note that information? And that brings us to our next part. If we look at a spirogram, and they sometimes give you a spirogram or a graph and ask you some questions on that. So if I look at this, the tidal volume is that part in there, is how I breathe in and out when I am not exercising. Nee. But we know when I am exercising, I will increase the amount of air, and I will increase that I'm breathing in and the amount of air that I am breathing out. So we already know, when I am exercising, I have an increase in the amount of air breathing in and breathing out. What is the reason for that? What is the reason for that? When I'm exercising, there's I breathe in and out deeper and faster. What is the reason for that? To repay an oxygen debt. No, we do not start there. That is when I know I have lactic acid. Why do I, while I'm exercising, not at the end of my exercise, while I'm exercising, to release more energy because I have more active muscles. Okay, so now you must listen carefully. While I'm exercising, I breathe in faster and deeper. My heart rate, decrease or increase? Increase to make sure that this inhaled oxygen reaches the cells faster. Why? Because while I'm exercising, I have active muscles. These active muscles need more oxygen to have a higher rate of respiration so that energy can be released. But also, what about the carbon dioxide that was produced during respiration need to be removed? Now, it's not only in, but it's also out. That is while I'm exercising. Do you see the difference in what we said in lactic acid? Why do I not stop breathing in deeper and faster and have a higher rate when I stop with my exercise? Now there was a time where there was not enough oxygen, so there's an oxygen debt. The body started to do anaerobic respiration, build up lactic acid. Do you see the difference in the question? If the question is, why do we breathe in faster, deeper, faster heart rate while exercising? Nee. More oxygen for a higher respiration rate so that the muscles can be active, keep on going faster. And I want to get rid of the carbon dioxide faster. Why? Carbon dioxide is getting a poisonous substance. Nah, it's changing the pH. Carbon dioxide that dissolves in water gives us carbonic acid. Lower the pH of the body. You do understand that? Okay, and you have that explanation, effects of physical activity on the rate and depth of breathing. Okay, it is explained there. And on page 320, you see the difference in having a tidal volume. The tidal volume is breathing normally, and then you have a higher inspiration and expiration, and that's all that you need to know. You do not have to know all these words. No. I just want you to understand that the tidal volume is my breathing without exercising. But can you see that I can increase the volume? The inspiratory volume I can increase, and the expiratory volume I can increase. But what is interesting, Joshua, is there is always about 1 liters of air staying inside my lungs. Otherwise, if everything moves out, they will stick to one another, and it will be difficult for the air to blow it up. Nee. So there's always an amount of air to keep the air bags open. That we call the residual volume. Okay, here I'm just explaining, and now I want to move to smoking. Because we need to look at what can harm my lungs. So smoking, you have to know nicotine, tar, and carbon monoxide. There are plus minus 4,000 chemicals in a cigarette, and many of them are not good for our health. If we look at nicotine, nicotine is a stimulant. Stimulant means increase the heart rate, increase the blood pressure. Okay, nicotine. And that is what makes you addicted to it. Because you feel much better if you have lots of oxygen moving through your body. Nah? If your heart pumps faster. So, it is a stimulant, it is addictive, but it is bad for it's increasing your heart rate, increasing your blood pressure. And unfortunately, with that, it also increased the amount of fatty substances moving through your blood. And what do we know what happens with fatty substances? They can go and collect on the sides. And they can form a plaque, and they can form a clot in your arteries. And then you can have a heart attack. Nah. Okay, the next one is tar. Now, we all like to drive on a tarred road, né? And so, some smokers also think if they can travel on a tarred road, their lungs will be fine. Unfortunately, that tar is a carcinogen. Carcinogen means a chemical causing cancer. It will build up in your lungs, and you can think if your alveoli is covered with tar, the diffusion of oxygen will be very difficult. Your lungs will start to produce much more mucus to help to get the white blood cells there so that it can fight the infections. And you have a build-up of mucus full of tar, and the oxygen cannot move through that. And then the third one is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide combines with the hemoglobin. Interesting. The hemoglobin, we always think hemoglobin is to carry oxygen. But you know what? Actually, that hemoglobin molecule has a higher affinity. It means it loves carbon monoxide much more than oxygen. So, if my hemoglobin is moving there with the red blood cells and there is carbon monoxide present, it will rather combine with the carbon monoxide. And it takes the place of the oxygen. So, the smoker thinks that he or she is inhaling oxygen. But unfortunately, much less of the hemoglobin is filled with oxygen, rather carbon monoxide. Okay, so unfortunately, that is the fate of a smoker. And oral cancer, lung cancer, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, peptic ulcer, pancreas cancer, bladder cancer, atherosclerosis, where your arteries are becoming very hard because it is stuck with fatty compositions and salts, myocardial infarction, that is the heart attack, esophagus cancer, and cancer of the larynx, is what is the end of smokers. Okay, so please do not start. Okay, let's continue. So, that is smoking. The next thing is, what is an allergy? We know an allergy is when I am very sensitive to a substance and I have an overreaction. So there is a substance in my body. It will not do me harm. It is a harmless substance, but my body thinks there is something that needs to be destroyed. To do that, my cells will secrete a protein that is called a histamine. So what do we drink when we have allergies? Antihistamines. Antihistamines. And that is actually not taking away the allergy. Can you see that? It only counter-effects the working of the natural defense system. It's just taking the work of the histamine out of my system. The pollen, the things that I'm allergic to will stay there. So the allergy will not stop. Air pollution is something that makes the symptoms of allergies much worse due to all the chemicals that we find in the air. Okay, right. This is a picture of the upper nasal cavities, and you do not have to know this. I just want you to think, how much cavities? Look at the cavity there, the cavities at the back of your nose, and all these are called your the sinus cavities. And when you have sinusitis, I-T-I-S means infection. It means that you had a lot of bacteria or viruses that are in those areas. And now the body makes mucus in order to try and fight them. And then we say we have sinusitis and we have all this gooey stuff that's running at the back of our throats. Now, okay, and this brings me to, I quickly want you to read with me. We 10 to 14 inhalations per minute. In one day, we need 20,000 breaths, about 35 pounds of air. Most of us breathe in air that is heavily contaminated with solid particles, ozone, sulfur oxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and many other damaging chemicals. Breathing contaminated air can cause a number of diseases. And you need to know what is asthma, bronchitis, emphysema. What is the difference between this? Now, and I do have the explanations. Also, we add to those 4 diseases, we add smoking. Smoking, we already know 4,000 different chemicals, but the cigarette smoke paralyzes the cilia in the airways. And that causes a lot of debris, a lot of pathogens build up, and it does not move out. You need to cough it out. Now, okay. That's why we know this smoker's cough. Ek gaan aan. And there we have asthma. It is a condition in which breathing is impaired by the constriction of the bronchi and the bronchioles, cough and thick mucus secretions. The severity and incidence of asthma has risen dramatically in recent years, especially in children, and it may be fatal. What causes this? And asthma is caused by allergens and stress. Okay. If you tend to have a lot of asthma attacks, maybe it is caused by stress. The next one, emphysema. And I'm going to skip I'm only going to get to the pictures. Let me just get to the pictures, then you can easily understand. Okay, so this is a lung, a normal healthy lung, and this is a cancerous lung. Ek wil so graag sommer aan hierdie kant. Kom ons kyk of ek kom aan hierdie kant kan. Kom ek staan aan hierdie kant. Okay. So emphysema. There we see the effect of emphysema cause the alveoli to lose their side walls. So instead of having many little bubbles, I only have one sac. It decreases the surface area for gaseous exchange. Now, asthma, constriction of the bronchs and the bronchioles, and bronchitis is in the bronchs. I have an excessive amount of mucus, which is caused by the infection of pathogens. Okay? Do you have that? Emphysema, alveoles lose their side walls and become one sac, less surface area. Asthma, constriction of the bronchs, so less airflow. Bronchus, full of mucus, less diffusion of bronchitis, less diffusion of oxygen. Okay, and there you see the bronchitis, lots of mucus. This is a normal one. This is one full of mucus. Then it becomes inflamed and the whole structure change. Nee. Emphysema, you see all the little bubbles, large surface area. Now that inner walls is moving away, destroyed, and I have only one air sac. And
This broadcast is made possible by the Capricorn Group.
The wait is finally over! The leaders want to run away with it! Those at the bottom will fight to survive! There is so much to expect! It's as good as it gets!